Ice
Hey,
cream.
this is our education and new members meeting for November 20th, and we're now live. So, um, if everyone wants to start by introducing themselves, I think that might be a, a good a good
Okay,
way to
great.
get going.
It's a good idea. I'm Quan Nguyen. I go by Quan for most of my friends, and I'm uh been with Enable for a little bit, and I'm out here in California.
I'll go next. Hello, I'm Jonathan. I've been lurking around e-NABLE for about 2 years. Um, Kind of involved in everything at this point, so happy to be here. Hopefully, we can have a good conversation. And I am in Wisconsin.
Hi, I'm John Filreis. I tripped over Enable because I'm a industry advisor for an ethics team at ASU that's working on a artificial hand for a person in Sri Lanka, and
Oh,
I'm
wonderful.
in. Excuse me.
That's great.
Oh, thank you.
Tom Miller here, new to Enable, been off and on the past few months, but looking to get more involved. Just saw that there's a UT Austin. I'm near Austin, Texas, and
Oh,
so I
great.
plan to reach out to them and see where I can help out.
That's great. Awesome. I used to live in Texas. I was born in Texas. Born in Arlington,
And
lived in Houston. That's great.
Gotcha.
Sorry, Sarah. Go ahead.
oh no, I'm sorry. I'm I'll go last. I'm Sarah. I have been with Enable for a few years now, and um, I'm here to answer all of your questions on the hub or over email. I send out the monthly newsletters, so if you don't receive the newsletter and want to, um, please email me and I will leave my email in the chat. My favorite thing to do is to collect and share all of your stories. So yeah, if you have a question or a story to share, uh, let me know. I don't have an engineering background. I'm a journalist, so if you have an engineering question, I probably won't know the answer, but I will know someone who does. So, um, and
And
thanks
I'm John
everyone for being
Shell.
here. And John joined us, so that's
That's
great.
right. So I'm a co-founder back in the day of this esteemed organization. And Sarah, it occurs to me that um, Madison's link tree and other materials does not include a link to subscribing to your newsletter. So let's make sure that that happens.
I don't think there is a link to subscribe to the newsletter. I have to add people to the email list manually. Is there a link where that people can click on to subscribe? I
I
don't.
I don't know, but in any case, Madison's material should make subscribing to the newsletter an easy and obvious thing to do and figure out how.
Oh, okay. If it's
Okay.
possible, I will. Sure.
Okay. Great. Uh, I'll be back in a minute, folks.
Okay.
Well, great. For those new, what have your experiences been so far?
Uh, this is Tom. Just speaking for myself. I mean, everyone's been very supportive and all that. I've been transitioning into retirement. Um,
Oh,
Sarah's answered questions. Jonathan has too. I'm trying to get more involved. I've got a couple Bamboo Lab printers,
hmm
and want to try getting into using them more. I had done some work with the Phoenix Two Hand and PLA. Then I switched to
hmm
PETG, and so looking at
hmm
alternative materials for strength. Um,
hmm
and Jonathan, I think that's where I might reach out to you some for some of the work you've done, if you don't
hmm
mind. But that's kind of where I'm going. and then try and plug in this chapter that I just found at UT Austin.
Wonderful, wonderful. Who have you made hands for or arms for? Which one is it somebody local or somebody far away from you?
No, I've just begun the process of learning how to make the hands, and so I've made
Mm-hmm.
5 or 6. I was working on one. I believe Sarah mentioned to me one time. Try or no, actually, it was Ian said make one yourself to fit so you can understand the limitations of it, and that's where I
Mm-hmm.
realized that the Phoenix may not be the best option initially, and so
Mm-hmm.
trying to reach out to others. So I haven't provided any devices to anybody because I don't feel I'm quite there yet. I'm still learning that
Mm-hmm.
process, but I plan to definitely get involved.
Yeah, the Phoenix is a good point of entry. Phoenix Unlimited. If you want something that looks very pretty, but it's even more complicated to build, I think the Connecticut is very pretty, but it's pretty. I feel like it's a lot more steps and more complicated to build. So that would be not the great first one to start with, but it's good that you're getting started. What do you find complicated? Is it just the construction or the strength of the device?
The the device itself is not. It doesn't really come as a challenge. I've done some engineering work in the military. The 3D printing, I've been doing it for a few years now.
Hmm.
Oh.
It's more getting into it and understanding which models are the most useful for the application, and then finding out how to
Mm-hmm.
plug into organizations to go and provide them.
Mm-hmm.
I've got resources for travel, so I could
Mm-hmm.
go and help size them. And I understand
Mm-hmm.
that some of the issues as children or adults grow or change,
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a living process. You need to stay in touch to provide updates, that kind of thing. So I'm still learning about the whole process in general.
Yeah, yeah, so super interesting. Um, if you have time, look into, I'm going to plug one of my students. So my background is I'm a cardiologist, but I coach high school robotics for the first organization. And we've been working with most of you know this, we've been working with a group in Uganda called the World Action Fund. This year, we've sent at least 90 limbs their way. And they just did a whole slate of measurements and fitments recently. They have a huge need. A lot of the developing nations do, partly poor access to healthcare, farming accidents, violence is a big problem. I won't go into that too much, but one thing that we found is interesting. You know, when you John, I forgot we have two Johns on the call. What was interesting was they were, first of all, they're not interested in multicolored prints the way, you know, someone in, we used to send stuff to Brazil and the Philippines and they want their hand to be green like the Hulk. They want to be powerful. And, but we found that in Uganda, they don't want to stick out. They just wanted to have a disability is actually something of a social stigma, which is ironic since we have a lot more amputees out there. So they wanted to look brown. That was the first thing. And the second thing is they didn't want it to look robotic like the Phoenix. We used to send them Phoenix Unlimited hands, and they did not like how robotic it looked. And so we said, but one hand that they did like was the kinetic hand, at least in terms of look, because it looks so good. But have you looked into the kinetic hand?
No, no, not yet. No.
Okay, and that's okay. It's super complicated. You have to print some TPU. It's very intricate. I mean, once you're done with it, I imagine there's this huge sense of accomplishment from a engineer's perspective of making something so pretty.
Right.
But it's not. It wasn't practical for a couple of reasons. First of all, it wasn't practical because it took so long to make, and they actually sent me a list of at least it was 378 patients at first, and then they sent me another list that was almost 800 patients of people who could potentially use a limb. I said, well, if it's going to take several hours, I only have a team of like 14 or 15 kids. I'm not sure we can make 300 limbs when it takes several hours to make it. So one of my kids developed, I don't want to say developed, they adapted multiple designs. We call it the Gripper Kwawu. And John pointed out this one hand called this Skip Meats had made. It's the gripper hand, and it literally just looks like, I don't have access to screen sharing on my iPad right now, but it looks like a hand with veins, and it literally just looks like this when you hold it, and there's only 1 degree of freedom, which is right at the thumb. So it's almost just like a hook. So it's not cool like most of the other hands that are string actuated. But the advantage is, and use the kinetic hand a little bit, the Phoenix hand, and you'll find that the grip strength is not great if you're trying to pick up something heavier than a cup. And it's not bad, I think, if you're just trying to get around through your normal day. But if you're trying to push a rake or a hoe or peel cassava with your parents or something like that, it doesn't have a lot of great grip strength. But it is cool that you can actuate it with another joint. But this one, you can't actuate it with the joint. But if you can just open it up with another hand and grab something, your grip strength is actually fairly good. You can even grip a pen with it. And we found that the assembly time on that is less than an hour, generally.
Great. Okay. Yeah. I think I have seen pictures of that. So
the gripper
that could be that could be something interesting to help out that organization. Do they need help printing them?
Well, so that's the thing, is that we print and assemble, and then what we do is if you are currently, so if you feel like, gosh, I don't know if I know what I'm doing, which I seriously doubt that, having designed things for the military, this is not quite at that level. At least I hope the military engineering is a higher level than this.
Right.
But essentially, I don't want to say so you need some epoxy, and then the other thing we did to improve the grip strength was one of my kids, they shrunk the original thumb by about 1 millimeter all around. And when you print your thumb, what will happen is it'll create a mold. It'll actually create a separate mold for you. And then you put the thumb inside the mold and you pour silicone into it that you can just get on Amazon. And then it will have essentially a silicone coating that improves the grip strength, or at least the gripability of it just a little bit more.
That's great.
So I would look into it. It's actually I challenged the student to do it with SCAD. So he spent 9 hours figuring out how to use SCAD, and so now not a problem for you, but you don't even have to know how to do CAD. You can just enter in the measurements like you can with some of the other models. And John has heard me say this before, both Johns. It's so easy a fifth grader can make it, because we have an entire fifth grade class in Moreland Elementary in the great state of Texas, who it's their class project to make hands for children in Uganda.
That's awesome. And all the files all up on the e-NABLE website?
Yeah.
Or links to get out to? Okay.
Yep. And
Jonathan, thank you. Yep.
We have the short and the long forearm. The short forearm requires some thermoforming. The long forearm, the long forearm does not require any thermoforming, but I'm getting it backwards. The long forearm does require thermoforming. The short one does not. So, but they're both kind of satisfying to make, and we have quite a few picture people. We're still getting feedback from them on the other side, like they don't like the 3D printed bolts, so we're experimenting with different just actual metal bolts. So they're worried about that breaking. But I will tell you this: can you imagine, take the kinetic hand or any of the other ones, and some of them have already broken on shipping, whereas the gripper coil was actually not that easy to break. So the other problem is when you ship things out there, they have to go like 100 kilometers away from their central base to fit it. And if that person breaks their unit, those little finger joints are so not super durable,
right.
That they have no way of replacing it. They have to travel 100 kilometers just to get a replacement, which probably wouldn't practice. But this is why we pushed this particular design, only because we had done some. I talked with a guy who does a lot of assistive work in Tanzania, and he was telling me, he said he modifies wheelchairs to be able to be used on non-paved roads. And he was saying that, it's not practical to give somebody something that they can't repair or that will break easily. Right. His wheelchairs can be repaired with bicycle parts you find in a scrapyard. So that's kind of different work, I think, than working in more developed nations. In developed nations, their ask is different. Usually they don't mind, or in fact, really like the idea that it looks a little bit robotic, that it stands out. They celebrate their differences, make different colors. And John, he showed me a presentation. He was talking about, sometimes it's not about what the arm can do, it's about how it makes them feel. In fact, I feel like that's 90% of it. So
that's awesome. It's great information.
Yeah. I want to comment on the gripper Kwawu. it's also quite a good-looking design, especially combined with, well, with the arm. I just reviewed the 20 most recent deliveries in Uganda, as well as um, a few hundred of the photographs of people who hope to get the devices. And in Uganda, most of these cases are above elbow amputations.
Yeah.
And first of all, if you don't have an elbow actuated Phoenix is not going to help. So that's another reason why the gripper is really important, is because you don't need to be able to actuate it that much. Even the below elbow, the gripper is great. So that's one thing, is that the robustness and the simplification. However, having looked at a lot of these deliveries and also looking at the amputations themselves, there's an opportunity, I think, to improve. What I saw is that in a number of these cases, the socket is too loose. There's not enough padding to make it snug.
Right.
And in some, I think, really embarrassing cases, the stump just below the elbow is so short that when they try to bend the arm,
It falls off.
It slips out.
Mm-hmm.
Even when their arm is long enough, it looks like there's a lot of slop in there. So I think there's room for improvement of the upper arm part, and quite possibly a shoulder strap to keep it from sliding down on the arm.
You mean with
so
the really
that
short
it
stump?
stays. Say it again.
Are you talking about with the really short stump?
Either way. What I've noticed is that if it's attached to the upper arm, as it is with a strap, as they use it, it's going to inch its way down the upper arm. And that will increase the potential of the stump to pop out of the socket.
Yeah.
And I see them trying to pick up water jugs as one of their tasks. In many cases, they can do it, but that also is going to pull the thing down. And I suspect that the whole thing would be better if there were a shoulder strap, let's say, around the neck and was anchored on the opposite shoulder, so that the weight was borne not by the attachment, but by the body. So, as of just this week, we have the ability to look at 20 videos of people working with these things.
Yeah.
In some cases, it's great. They're using a hoe, they're using a broom, they're obviously functioning with two arms where they used to function with one arm. But it also demonstrates that there's plenty of opportunity for improvement in the fitting and in the anchoring.
That's a great point, John. That's good. One of the challenges with working with a country that's half a world away is getting the feedback, and partly because what they'll do is if they're close to where they are, then they'll fit them right away. But if it's far, as John and I kind of are coming to realize, then what they'll do is they'll batch them. And so we often don't get the feedback for months after it was already made. And so that's really good. So I think early on we got quite a bit of feedback because they were delivering to places that were, geographically closer. So that's actually extremely good feedback. And we made changes based on what they had said. I know a prosthetist near where I live. It would be easier if I could work with somebody who was closer. And we were trying, actually, interestingly, John, you had pointed out that a lot of people are above elbow amputations. And actually back in January or February, we actually had 70 unfulfilled, and it's probably more now, above the elbow amputations, because we just don't have an easy to make version of that. And the NIOP arm, I think, is what's on e-NABLE right now. But NIOP is actually, it's really cool. We've worked with it, but the only problem is we don't have the original CAD, so it's hard to modify. And it's actually very difficult to construct for, I think, the average user. And we're interested in making something so I think John, there's two things that you've brought up that we're very interested in. The first is how to make it more stable. And so I'm happy to hear that we're having more use cases where the stability is poor. So that gives us an opportunity to improve. So I like that.
Agreed.
So probably my students will not be able to get to that till early December, when their Christmas break starts and they're finished with their finals and their competition. But we'll definitely get on that. The second issue, which is a longer and more complex question, is the above elbow amputations. And I've been wondering, I feel like we need to start a group of people who are interested in developing that. A group of engineers. I've been toying with the concept of it. And there is not Sarah, Madison actually got me hooked up with that group in DC, the George Washington University. They were interested in creating a class around e-NABLE. And I said, why don't you make me an above elbow amputation prosthetic? Find some departmental engineers or somebody who you can work with, and that'll be your class project. And you can model, I don't know, whatever Victoria Hand is making. Theirs looks very nice. But what we would like is an arm that, I don't want to say easy to construct, because nothing above the elbow is going to be easy to construct, but something that is not a super high point of entry for a person trying it. So it's going to be more complicated than, say, the Phoenix, but it can't. I would hope it's not quite as complicated as the NIOP. The other, I think, requirement in that setting would be, does it have to be shoulder actuated? Because I'm really worried that if you have a shoulder actuated thing, will my grip strength be good or bad at that point? And so is it better just to have something like the gripper at the end, where it's just like essentially a glorified but very beautiful hook? Or does it have to be actuated by the shoulder? And I think having it actuated by the shoulder increases the complexity of the unit. So it's something to think about. If only I could find a former engineer for the military, my life would be here. Does anybody know anybody like that?
I feel a
I
nudge.
do. My good friend Tom might be perfect for this.
I'd be glad to try to help out. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And ironically, I've got ties to Uganda. I had lived in Burundi
Did you really?
for 3 years, yes, and trained peacekeepers to go up to Somalia and all that. So I understand logistical challenges with, out there, called the bush, further out away from the central locations. Is there any old CAD files that might still exist?
Of the
I know
NIOP?
yeah.
We have a bunch of STLs, and then the University of Toronto started to adapt, and they actually made an IOP for a patient in Uganda. We have not yet shipped. They're a little annoyed with us, rightfully so, partly because we couldn't figure out how to get it to work.
So, well, there's that.
And I'm sure it does work. It does work. Go ahead.
I want to say I'm not sure that the NIOP did attempt to do an above elbow and a shoulder mount, but I don't think that's the place to begin. I suspect. Let me try to address some of the questions that Anquan just raised. When you're talking about a full arm, especially in Africa, the cosmetic aspect is most important. That's the first thing, because they want not to be noticed. And so something that just looks natural, even if it just hangs there, is, I think, a real contribution. But it needs to hang there well. And I suspect that a non-stretchy cloth, imagine a non-stretchy t-shirt that could even be cut off at the, let's say, the rib cage level. So it's really just a way of anchoring to the two shoulders, and one shoulder may not even exist in full form, just to provide a mechanical anchor to the whole thing. And then there's some kind of a generic shoulder cup that just fits over the shoulder, or where the shoulder should be, and that's anchored to the fabric harness, yoke, I'm going to call it. And now you've got at least something to hang an arm off someone who may have little or no on side.
I see. Yeah.
That's step one. And I think that would actually be a big deal. And so that's one point. Then there's the question of what about actuation? I think a gripper is the right solution because, among other things, they don't have much that they can use for mechanically leveraging a hand, nor an arm. And it could be that a spring-loaded elbow that sort of naturally, we've actually done this in the past, a way in which the arm could be bent to the position you want and then locked in place. We have a design for an adjustable, lockable elbow. It's never really been put into place. So for a one-armed person, they could reach over and adjust their arm, let's say, so it was bent at the elbow facing forward. And then with their good hand, they could put something that they wanted to just hold passively into the gripper hand on that bent arm. And now they've got a way of walking around with one hand free to manipulate things and another one holding the bottle until they're ready to drink, for example. Okay,
Yeah.
so there are all sorts of things you could do, which I think are much less sophisticated than what the NIOP intended to do, which would be very much more robust and really more valuable, especially in a place like Uganda. What I would like to do, and again, I spent 12 hours in the last 2 days, probably close to 20, looking at all of these videos on all of these cases. I'd like to sit down with Tom and Anquan and the NorCal kids and just look at these cases and brainstorm what solutions might be. And then I suspect that Tom and the kids will come up with a variety of prototypes that would really be breakthroughs. What we've done on the Uganda project so far, I think, is a really important step. And we've never had a bunch of documented cases to work with before. And these are people who really need them. And they're not the usual bend wrist superhero cases. So I really want to learn from it. And I have to say, we need to get better. What we've done has been a very worthy experiment. But we're not where we need to be yet.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. It's just the engineering process. It's
You
not
bet.
like it's not like the movies where the first time you make something it works from the get. Yeah, most of the challenge has been early feedback was easier and later feedback was harder. So that's been a challenge. But the other challenge with above the elbow amputations is finding patients who are willing to try it so that we can test the ability. Like I went to a prosthetics group here in the Bay Area, and I'm sure I haven't gone to enough, and I could only find one, and that person is not even in the country, but they would be totally willing to do it, but they're not even in the country. So the main thing I think is not just making the device. The other thing is making the device and having somebody to test the device on who's willing to be a model for us and to tell us if it fits and to kind of work with it on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's the other challenge. So I think it's not just going to be me, Tom, and the kids. I think it'll be me, Tom, George Washington University. Maybe if I can get University of Toronto back interested in the work. They were only interested in making the NIOP at the time. I said, maybe we should be thinking bigger at making I don't want to say better NIOP. I think the NIOP is actually kind of interesting looking. I would say just something a little bit more practical. So something that, as you say, hangs better and has kind of limited functionality, but for what it does is very good at what it does. For example, the people who use their gripper quad, for whom it works very well, right?
That's right. That's right.
And it also makes me wonder too, like on the other side, like, do I need to talk to our friends at World Action Fund? Like, we gave them padding, and we said you should probably modify the internals according to the patient. And it's not clear to me that they always do that. And it could be a training issue, right? Because
That's right.
there's no way we don't use like 3D scanning to figure this stuff out. It's simple tape measures. And so we have told him, because he's complained about it before. I said, well, you could also just use the internal padding that we've sent you and try to modify it so that it fits the patient's arm better. And so again, that's not a criticism of them. That could be our training process. We could try to figure that out. So the whole thing is interesting. It's Tom, it's partly an engineering feat, but having worked in Uganda, I'm sure you've also realized there's a big logistic issue.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Right.
Mhm.
Right. For example, one thing that we did when we were working with, I said, I want people to be able to pick up a rake. And what was interesting is the original group require the circumference is too big for a rake. Now we could shrink that. That was one possibility. But we had pool noodles in the room, and I cut the pool noodle and I put it on a rake, and I said, now I can grip it. So that's like a cheaper option,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a number of videos now in Uganda of people using that quite effectively.
Oh, they are? That's good.
Yeah.
That's good, because I have a lot of videos of my kids doing it. So anyway, that's our goal is, again, our goal is not necessarily Uganda per se. Our goal is the next step, and I've talked to both Jonathan's and Sarah's about this. With e-NABLE, right now we are we are. You know what? I'm going to just make a comment. I don't know a whole lot of. I know a few Johns in my life, but they're mostly JOHNs. So it's quite a pleasure for me to see two JONs on the same call. So
there you go.
No, I think, right now, and I told John that the great thing about e-NABLE is it's kind of this nice structurally unstructured thing where people who are you're essentially gamifying altruism, right? And you're giving people badges, and I think that's really cool. It's an amazing system. But where it was difficult is, what about developing nations with larger asks? And we should probably be more focused on, not more focused on them, but their needs are bigger than ours, than the developed nations, and are larger anyway and require more logistical support. And so how do we take care of that from a logistics perspective? And I have a number of ideas, and once my head is above water, we can start working on implementing those. But I think what's interesting is that we're all kind of we all have other jobs. Sarah's a journalist, Jonathan is probably a mad hacker somewhere in Wisconsin. Tom is a retired military engineer.
We also have someone who's joined us. I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that
absolutely,
you get a chance um, to introduce yourself and let us know why you're here today.
Hello, new person.
I've just joined a bit late, I guess that's why. So my name is Yehui. I started in e-NABLE UAE. It's in Middle East, sort of. And then we're like a new chapter here based in the school. So we have sort of get our first case, and we're looking some advice on especially logistic part as well, and then how to fit those prosthetic in certain. Yeah.
Well,
Nice
great.
to meet you,
Welcome.
Yehweh. We were just in a meeting about 45 minutes ago. There's a new group trying to get going in Qatar. And at some point, you might want to cross paths with them. So at what stage are you at, Yehweh? Have you made a device yet? You say you have a case?
Yes. We've got in contact with a doctor in Brazil, really far away for some reason, for our first case. He got a lot of patients, so we just want to start with one case to
How many
test it
cases?
out, and then yeah.
How many cases does he have? How many patients?
He currently have like about 8 who need it, and he is thinking about starting a nonprofit there, to like an NGO there in Brazil do do more cases and get fundings from different companies. So
Can you pronounce your name for me one more time?
Yehui.
Yue.
Yeah.
When was the last time you spoke with him?
Just like 2 days ago. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And how large is your chapter? How many people are in your chapter?
It's based in a school, so if you count everyone in the innovation team, that's like around 30 to 40 people.
30 to 40 people. How many 3D printers?
We have two, three, six, seven, I believe. Wait, like
Okay.
they're different in size. We have a new one, we haven't opened it, so we may have a few more later.
Yeah, wait, would it be a terrible imposition if we s- organized a phone call or a Zoom call with you offline, so that we can help you with your effort over there? Would that be a terrible
Definitely,
imposition?
definitely, definitely. I think we need a
And
little
then
help really
yeah,
as
yeah,
a
I
new
think
chapter.
yeah. Well, it's not just a new chapter. Even old chapters would have trouble. Like if he's starting to, if you're making 8 limbs, I think that's not a problem. Making 8 limbs is just, if you have 30 or 40 members of your innovation team, probably 5 or 10 who actually do like the bulk of the work is usually the way these things go.
Yeah.
Um, and and that's very doable, right? That's essentially what Enable is, right? You make arms for people. The real challenge comes when he starts talking about making a nonprofit and starts talking about like making more limbs for more people, in which case you've now outpaced your innovations team logistically, its ability to provide that kind of support. Now, that's not to say you couldn't. I'm sure you can. But if you would mind, do you mind if me and my team reach out to you and kind of help you with your efforts?
Definitely, definitely.
Do we
Uh,
have do we have Yoe's email?
should I just send in the chat or
Please.
Please.
I'll send my school one?
Is this a high school or a college?
High school.
So you're fooling me, even though it's called Jumeirah College, it's really a high school. Got it.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird. Like the best school here as a high school is Dubai College, but it's all colleges for some
I see.
reason. British
Okay.
system, they like to call themselves college.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, we do have some, well, I can't say it's loads of more experience than you guys. We've only been doing this work for a little under a year, but I don't know how much of the call you caught, but we've already shipped over 90 limbs to Uganda.
Wow.
And they are actually a nonprofit. Well, I don't know if they're a nonprofit, but they are an organization that deals with people with disability, and they themselves only recently, they're just like your doctor in Brazil. They themselves only recently started getting involved with people with limb differences, and so we help them navigate those waters, and we ourselves are trying to learn to navigate those waters. So, but 90 limbs is no small feat. It's actually really hard, and so it depends on what this. Luckily, the doctor doesn't actually have 90 cases yet, so but we should, if you wouldn't mind, the next time you speak to him online, would you mind if we were there too?
Sure, sure. I'll talk to my team and see when we can organize maybe the next meeting.
So John and I were talking about probably the next step for Enable is mentoring groups to handle large scale efforts like this, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. So um, do you remember when you got in touch with him?
I think like 2 weeks ago. That's our first communication.
Two
When
weeks
I,
ago.
yeah,
Okay.
sort of, I sent a message on the forum and he just sent back.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
the really great thing is maybe not that great as that he don't
Hmm.
talk too much of English. So we've literally been translating everything, even in a
Oh, he speaks
meeting.
Portuguese. I see.
Yeah.
I don't have any local Portuguese speakers. I have some Brazilian friends, but they live in the great state of Texas. So, do you have any people who speak? Probably not a lot who speak Portuguese in the UAE, huh?
Not really, not really. So we've been using ChatGPT as our translator. their voice mode is really good. And
Oh, that's
that
great.
brings out another actually question I have is because I noticed that there's an Enable chapter in Brazil as well.
Mhm.
Would it be much
Big one.
easier if we
Yeah.
get like potentially maybe the Brazil chapter to help them? Would that be an easier case? But like I don't want to it's still like I want to find some cases, but I feel logistic wise it definitely would be easier if there's chapter near them that can provide
Yeah.
more
So
immediate help.
Let's
yeah,
let's 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 talk through it. John, what do you know about the chapter in Brazil? Are they very
the
active?
chapter in Brazil is one of the biggest and now most institutional chapters in the world.
Great.
They are now working under the National Department of Health, which puts some regulations in place,
Mhm.
which mandate that people in Brazil can get a prosthetist to prescribe an enabled device, and
Oh,
then
wow.
the volunteers make the device, and then it's fitted by the prosthetist. So it's quite an elaborate situation, and I think it's a real success story. The
Well, that's interesting.
organizer is named Everton Limbs, Lims, and I haven't heard anything in the last few years, so it would be great to get an update.
That is interesting. Um, yeah, wait, honestly, the most practical situation is, I should say the most, one practical situation is you don't want to be beholden to making Brazil limbs for the rest of time immemorial. You want them to make their own limbs. It doesn't even have to be with Jonathan Lim per se. So the goal would be you can send him some limbs just for test cases so he doesn't have to invest to the initial investment. But it's very expensive, right? Sending something from UAE to Brazil.
Yeah.
For us it's probably to send stuff to Uganda. I forgot what the cost is, but if we send 6 or 7 limbs at a time, it costs us like $30-$40 per limb each time we do it. And so we're willing to do it, but the ideal state would be eventually they can do it on their own, right? And that if they don't have the technical know-how, then we can help them on this end by doing the CAD and remotely. And then eventually they print it out. But this doctor on the other side, he may not have a lot of technical know-how. He may not. So it'd be super interesting to figure out Everton Lynn's, um, if he himself is kind of in charge of that still, or what's going on over there.
Right. Well, I'm
It's
sure I'm sure you can get in touch with Enable Brazil.
Mhm.
There will be a link to them on the map.enable.org.
Mhm.
And you should definitely put this Brazilian doctor in touch with them. That's
Mhm.
that's an important thing for an Enable volunteer to do, is to facilitate that kind of connection. And that's really distinct, Yahweh, from finding you a case to learn and get up to speed on. But he will be much better off being well connected to the Brazilian establishment, both because they can help, because they're local, and because there are regulations in place in Brazil. And then, in addition to that, we should figure out how to really engage with your innovation class in UAE.
Yep.
We have some opportunities that I think that you can take advantage of. You don't have to ship all the way to Brazil from UAE. We probably have some places you can go ship to that are more local. I have a couple contacts in West Bank that we're trying to work with right now, and there's a big need up
There's a
there.
huge need.
It's really big. So we'll see. And right now, some of the rate limiting step on our side is just the same as rate limiting step on your side. I have kids who have, final exams and midterms and things like that. There's a limit to how much I can make them do essentially child slave labor while they're making limbs. We made 90 limbs. Not all of them were us, but the majority was our team. And so they were happy to do it. They really loved the work. But once you start to scale up, you'll need other people who are also willing to do the work too, right? So
Yeah.
why don't we set up I'll have one of my students reach out to you your way, and then we can kind of help you strategize a little bit. Is that okay?
Sure, sure, definitely. I just didn't realize how big the Brazil chapter is until you told me about the thing they did in the local chapter. Sorry. Wait, sorry.
No, it's really cool that the Department of Health got involved, and actually that helps us a little bit too, because maybe we can't make limbs for them, John. Maybe they only wanted to go through some Brazilian chapter. Like, we don't know how it works over there. Maybe you need a prescription. What do you think? I don't I don't know
I
how
think
that.
that something like that is the case. We'll want to catch up with them and see what their current protocol is.
Yeah, because it's possible if that doctor doesn't know about the enabled chapter out there, he may not know that a
Right.
prosthetist make the measurements and all that kind of stuff. And there now we're over there shipping them limbs that are kind of illegal for them because a prosthetist needs to make the. So I think that's probably a good thing to do. Okay, well, we'll reach out to you. Your way. One of my students will reach out to you by this weekend. It's Thursday now, so they'll reach out to you soon.
Okay, great, great.
Nice to meet you, Your Way.
Nice to meet you all too here as well. That's like,
I've got a question for Tom. Tom, do you have
Yes, sir.
any hopes of going back to Uganda sometime?
I've
Is Tom still
had
with us?
some.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I had friends over there. Some of them have moved back. It's possible, yes.
I was toying with the idea of organizing a trip out there, but my life is just so easy. I have so little to do in my day.
I know.
Right.
So I
John,
don't
were you
know, but
thinking like
I would.
a fact-finding trip to go out there, get boots on the ground kind of thing?
I don't know.
Yeah. Go ahead.
If I were a younger man and also less busy, I would go and someone who really knows the craft, which you're learning, someone who is a problem solver, which you are, someone with good English to speak to me, as well as a good rapport with the locals, would be very helpful, I think, in helping us understand the situation, understand the real strengths and weaknesses, and work together to develop a system that will be really beneficial to the most people. And as you know, whether it's, military operations or other operations, the, I don't know how to say this, the weapons, the 3D printers and the guns are the least of it. They're sort of the defining apparatus for whoever's trying to make things happen. But in all cases, it's the logistics and the social coordination which makes the real difference.
Right.
And you learn that when you're there dealing with it.
Well, eventually too, Tom, I don't know that I wanted to be in the business, like I said, just with the same as Brazil of shipping 800 full arms out there. The eventual goal in my mind would be, how can we set them up with their own 3D printers and just ship them filament? And then we can help them on this side with the CAD and the measurement and modification of design and things like that. But they get in the business of finding their own volunteers to, assemble, distribute. I even say volunteers because they're actually just employed, but to assemble, because the assembly time is not that long. We love making arms on this side, but it's kind of that teach a man to fish thing, right? So
I was just thinking that exact thing. Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the deal we're trying to work out at the West Bank right now, but it's kind of slow because my kids have exams and things like that right now. But we were going to ship them a few arms if they liked it. I was talking over, they have an engineer on that side, and I said, once you feel comfortable that this is the product you'd like to use, then we could probably find people to fund 3D printers to be shipped over there. And I don't think that part of altruism is never hard to find. You can find somebody willing to buy a 3D printer. It doesn't even have to be me. Somebody will do it. But the issue is that, as you know, Tom, it's no good to ship someone a 3D printer if they have no idea how to maintain it.
Right. Or if there's no electricity, or yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
that was the other problem. Do they have consistent electricity? Will just power off in the middle of a print, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
or even access to a computer, right?
Right.
So that
And I
those
had,
are
yeah, some definitely challenges.
yeah.
I'd worked with NGOs over there. I had a friend that was buying up all the 1920s Singer sewing machines that you operate by your feet for
Oh
those
wow,
reasons, and
oh
would
wow,
ship them over there, refurbish them, and had an NGO doing that kind of thing. Um,
that's cool.
yes, absolutely. But like you said, maybe initially printing some and shipping them, but eventually get away from that and where they're doing it in country. Um, and that way they can do that last mile out into the bush to deliver them.
Right.
And yeah,
That's what I think too.
I'd like to
There,
continue the
there.
conversation about it. Absolutely.
Yeah, we probably should get on a call. Let me sort that out. Actually, let me get your email address as well. Is that okay, or did you just want to send it to me offline? I can put my non-business email address there, and you can. Why don't you email me directly?
And I can give you mine. It doesn't. It's okay. I keep going on mute trying to make sure I'm not over talking to somebody else, and then you got to find the button again.
Okay, I think that's fair. It is nice. It's part of his fact finding. I'm going to be honest with you, John, if and Tom, if I go out there, I'm so busy right now. It'd probably be a multi-reason trip, right? If I go out there, I'd probably be
Mhm.
interested in seeing what their education system looks like. Are they willing to? Is anybody willing to start a robotics curriculum out there? Because I do. That's my third
Sure.
life is coaching high school robotics outside of doing cardiology. So it probably won't but would be nice if we had somebody who wasn't just World Oxford Fund, but who actually knew Uganda a little bit, to help us navigate. Because if I go out there, I'm not just going by myself. I'm bringing some high school students. If I bring some high school students, I need to know that what I'm bringing them to is somewhat, is safe. Like,
Right.
That's huge. Yeah,
you know
that's
what I
huge.
mean?
Just safety and security.
Yeah. So, but I have had people. I just gave a talk, and I have had people ask me if I was going to do that. Go ahead, John. Did
Um,
you?
on Quan, now that you reminded me about the whole robotics thing, we had a bionic meeting recently in which Eric Bubar, who is a
Mm-hmm.
very accomplished, longtime Enable volunteer,
Mm-hmm.
um, presented a robotic hand that he
Mm-hmm.
has now adapted as a potential motorized prosthetic. And it was
That's
very
cool.
promising. And I'm going to ask Sarah to send you the recording of that conversation because you had Eric, you had David Ellentuck, you had a really interesting hardware platform, and there was enthusiasm for saying this might be the platform to try to come up with a good motorized enable hand that would not be a technology project, but might actually be robust enough to be actually made and used by people. And the robotics community, the first robotics community, might really get on this. So,
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, will you send him the YouTube? And
Sure.
because there's an initiative, these things, they become low hanging fruit and then they rot. And right now, it's a low hanging fruit that has not quite been picked yet. So you should check it out, Antoine. It could be a part of what's emerging.
Yeah, that's a good. And the other thing too, I guess, right now we're talking about Uganda, we're talking about Brazil and things like that. But and I know that Peter over there keeps asking me to make these $10,000 hands. I'm kind of only half joking. Um, and I just don't think it's practical out there. But some of these more expensive hands that makes sense. But we'll have to see. I don't. Am I a person? I feel like I'm frozen right now. Oh, there you go. See
It
you
broke
now.
up a little bit. Yeah.
Um. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. No. I think. Yeah. Okay. I'll watch the video with my. Me. Yeah. Just email it to me. The link. That'd be good. Let me copy people's email here. All right, great.
You know, I'm going
Well,
to
we're
jump
coming
off
on to the
because,
hour.
right. And we lost him. I think this is a great moment to say goodbye. I want to jump in on my conflicting meeting before it ends. So it was great to meet you, Yewei. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
I'm signing off.
All right. Bye, guys.
Okay, goodbye, everyone.